In a word, it's chaos.
You'll have to see it to believe it. Whoever said that must have been talking about Talladega. It's a place where chaos mixes with speed, where a town turns into a city, and a weekend becomes a lifetime of memories. It's a tradition like no other.
What a wild finish.
At a track like no other. And after it's all over, you still don't believe it ever happened.
The winner of Talladega.
Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Glad to welcome you back to the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We're now 2 games deep into the season, and we still have a long way to go. So we're starting ULM week with this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Start to go through what's coming up on the show and through all our headlines as well, thanks to our friends at RJ Young. They are the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. First things first, we'll take a look back at the win against Texas from this past Saturday with our booth cam highlights. A dramatic win. You're going to want to see how dramatic it was inside the booth as well, as we called Alabama against Texas. A great victory for the Crimson Tide. Then we'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, with Coach's Checklist, giving his thoughts on the Texas game, plus looking ahead to what's coming up Saturday against ULM. Same thing can be said for our one-on-one conversation with Alabama defensive back DeMarcco Hellams. He's helped lead a really strong defense so far this season. So we'll be chatting with DeMarcco Hellams coming up in just a bit. And then another Alabama great defensive player, one of our legends for this week, Terry Jones Sr. A fascinating conversation about somebody that played for Coach Bryant and then later helped as a strength coach for Coach Saban. A great conversation with TJ coming up. And then we will have as well the best of Crimson Tide Rewind, as we always have that show Monday nights at 6 p.m. from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. You'll hear some great conversation between myself and Corey Reamer, former Crimson Tide linebacker, about the Texas win and what's coming up against ULM. Keep going through our headlines for today, and we'll take a look first at Crimson Tide football. Again, this past Saturday, had the win against Texas. The final score was 20-19, came down to the end. Will Reichard getting the game-winning field goal for the Crimson Tide, and for that, he was named the SEC Special Teams Player of the Week. Not only did he hit the game winner, he tied a career high with 52-yard field goal that he had earlier in the game. Now, the Crimson Tide will be home against ULM this Saturday at 3 o'clock. Our coverage on the network will start at noon. Alabama off to a 2-0 start. Meanwhile, the Warhawks of ULM, led by former Auburn head coach Terry Bowden, off to a 1-1 start. They also played Texas to begin the season, had a loss in Austin, but backed it up this past week at home against Nichols with a win. Crimson Tide soccer team, speaking of wins, last Sunday picked up a strong win. 3-0 was the final score against North Alabama, so good to see the Crimson Tide return home after that great road trip and pick up a victory against UNA. Riley Mattingly Parker scoring once again for the Crimson Tide. Also Jessica Skorka, and then Raina Reyes has now scored in 3 straight matches for Alabama. So congratulations to those young ladies on all the goals. Now South Carolina's coming to town on Thursday, 6 p.m., a ranked matchup in Tuscaloosa. A huge match coming up between Alabama and South Carolina on the SEC Network on Thursday night. Then on Sunday, the Crimson Tide will round out their non-conference play by welcoming in Chattanooga at 6 p.m. A few other headlines around Crimson Tide athletics. The men's golf team winning the Rod Myers Invitational. Coming up on Thursday's episode of Hey Coach, you'll be hearing from Jay Sewell talk about that victory as Cannon Claycomb won medalist honors. The top 3 finishers in the event were all Alabama golfers, so really good work done by the men's golf team. Volleyball this past weekend went 1-2 at the Ball State tournament, and then women's basketball. Now we know the full schedule. They're going to start the season on November 7th. Obviously, the great trip coming up to the Bahamas as well as their SEC slate, so the full schedule is available on RolledTide.com. And also, best of luck to Mick Potter and the women's golf team. They are competing at the Annika Intercollegiate to begin their season. But the Crimson Tide season, of course, is underway, and the Crimson Tide are off to a 2-0 start. A victory for Alabama that was very dramatic, and inside the Crimson Tide Sports Network booth, it was dramatic as well as Alabama got the win. Let's take a look back at the booth cam highlights from Saturday.
Stone approaches the football, and we are underway from Austin, Texas. Set to try what will be a 52-yard try, almost the middle of the field. The hold from Burnip. The kick is up. It appears to have enough leg. It is up, and it is good. 52 yards. Will Reichard. The snap from Nealon Hibbett was perfect. So too the hold from Burnip. Reichard boots it through from 52, and Alabama gets on the board first. You'll have both McClellan and Gibbs in the ball game. It is Gibbs who stays left, and McClellan in the backfield. He gets the handoff, goes right side, cuts it up 20, 25, 30, foot race, 40, across midfield, 45, 40, forget catching him, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Alabama. The Tide rolls on an 81-yard touchdown run from Jace McClellan, and Bama quickly goes back on top.
It's a big answer right there. We wanted to keep the offense on the field a little longer than that, but we'll take an 81-yard touchdown right there. Alabama started with two backs in the backfield. It was Gibbs, it was McClellan. Then Gibbs goes out wide to the left, becomes wide receiver. McClellan, simple stretch play to the right. Nice block on the edge, and then a broken tackle. Didn't even break a tackle. Untouched right there. Great job from right side. J.C. Latham sealing the edge. Cut back from Jace McClellan for the score.
Just 4 of 11 is Alabama on third down conversions, and again, 6 straight that they have failed to convert on. Play clock down to 1. Snap is made ahead of the whistle. Stepping up, Young. He's got a lot of room. He'll run it 35, 40. He'll get out of bounds at the 45. What do you know? No flags down. Hallelujah. And Alabama will move the chains for the first time in a month, it seems. 17 yards on the pickup from Bryce.
Thank you, Bryce. That's a big run right there. Big third down conversion to keep the drive going, keep our defense on the field. Nothing open downfield once again. I mean, these Texas DBs are shutting us down. And like I said, hey, Bryce, put the team on your back right there. Pick up 17 yards for the first.
The handoff goes to the Crimson Tide's Roydell Williams, the junior from Hueytown, pushing the pile forward. Fresh legs out there. Reminds me a little bit of Roy Upchurch in the late second, late fourth. You saw that a lot back in the day.
Heck yeah, let's keep it going. Roydell, Roy Upchurch, I don't care who it is. First down, 2 in a row for Alabama. Let's go.
1st and 10 from the 23 of Texas. The pass across the middle, catch again, Brooks spinning, brought down inside the 10-yard line. They'll spot him at the 6, move the chains again as Alabama gets inside the red zone. A 17-yard pickup there for the Crimson Tide.
Starting to hit him a little pace. See it? We're getting to the ball. We're running it quick right there. Bryce, plenty of time once again. Now we've got Texas on their heels. They're a little undecisive what they're doing on defense. Alabama going to spread them out 5 wides right now again.
From inside the Chick-fil-A red zone, they'll spot it at the Texas 6. Empty set again. Young pump fake. Looks to his left. Rolls to his left. Stops. Looks into the end zone. Catch is made. Touchdown, Alabama. Jahmyr Gibbs makes the grab in the back of the end zone, and Alabama has tied it up. Reichard on to give Bama the lead, and he does just that. Corey, what'd you see?
Man, he was running for his life. Unbelievable job by Bryce Young, keeping his eyes downfield, finding the open guy. He had 3 guys in his face, running backwards, somehow turns his body, be able to get the throw across his body. Unbelievable play by Bryce Young.
Order restored, and we'll try to keep it there when we come back.
We got to get a stop right here. 2 timeouts left for Alabama. We got to get a stop. Think they make the field goal and give Bryce enough time to try to go down and win this football game. But this is the play of the game right here for Alabama. 3rd and 3. Got to get off the field and try to force a field goal attempt.
We get a man in motion. He'll get the snap. He'll hand it off. No, he'll keep it. He'll go down. A huge sack recorded by Will Anderson Jr. Looking, throwing, near side catch made. Burton. He'll get out of bounds, stopping the clock right at the 33-yard line of Alabama. Bryce looking, throwing, catch made across the midfield stripe, down to the 46-yard line. Jahmyr Gibbs making the catch. Another bank first down for the Crimson Tide with 1:18 to go. Gets the snap from the pistol, looking right, throws it, Latu the catch, gets bumped down shy of the first down mark. That will keep the clock running with 57 seconds to go. Young will look right, he'll throw right, catch Latu, gets to the first down mark, maybe a yard shy. Nope, they'll spot him right there. Most important, he gets out of bounds with 35 seconds to go. All available is wideouts. Gibbs actually in the backfield right now, goes to the right of Young. Blitz coming right side, steps through it, rolls to his right, directing traffic, runs it now inside the 25, gets out of bounds inside the 20. What a play. Bryce Young maybe saving a chance for Alabama right there, avoiding the sack, gets out of bounds with 27 seconds left to play. He's going to swing it right side. Catch made, getting out of bounds after the grab to Corey Brooks, and that will set up a 4th down. I thought they were going to run it left, get it in the middle of the field.
They try to have him out, but Texas was showing blitz from the field. Bryce saw that, and I think wisely just jumped to the right, try to pick up a couple more extra yards instead of running right into a blitz. Who knows what can happen, but we got Will Rocker coming up. Chance to win the ball game.
Now trying to give Bama the win. 33 yards. Snap, spot, kick, all up, and good! Will Reichert boots it through with 10 seconds to go, and Bama leads it 20-19.
What a drive right there for Bryce Young, orchestrating it. The play of the game was that cornerback blitz from Texas. Bryce is able to pull it down, somehow miraculously avoids the sack, picks up the first down, puts us in field goal range, and then Will Reichert does the rest, put us up 20-19 with only 10 seconds left to go here in the fourth quarter.
Will was the player spotlight on Coach Saban's television show last week, and he talked about how great a kicker he was and amazing his career has been, and the season he had 2 years ago where he did miss a kick. Not a single one. He said, I don't know if I've ever seen that. I was afraid. I was so afraid. We all were. You know what we were thinking when you get that kind of praise. Nick Saban's not going to jinx you. He got it done. Will Reichert boots it through from 33 yards, and Alabama does indeed take the lead 20-19. 3 wideouts left, 1 to the right, a single setback, you would think, in protection for the quarterback card. Drops back with time, steps up in the pocket, pressure coming. He will step up, he will throw across the middle. Robinson catches it on his shoe tops. The clock says triple zeros, and let's get out of Dodge. 20-19. Alabama comes from behind late to win it. A Will Reichert 33-yard field goal gives Bama the victory as Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian shake hands at midfield. Great respect by both men, for both men and both programs, but it's Alabama that gets the victory today in Austin.
What a fun time in the booth this past Saturday in Austin, Texas, and we will have the booth cam presented by Royal Furniture up and running once again coming up this Saturday from Bryant-Denny Stadium for Alabama against ULM. But that was a bit of the drama that we had this past week as it went down to the wire. Alabama picked up the victory 20-19 over the Texas Longhorns. Now we'll start getting ready for this week's opponent, ULM, and we'll be talking, of course, later on in the show with an Alabama football player, DeMarcco Hellams. We'll also have our Be Kind Crimson Tide Rewind segment with Corey Reamer, as well as a visit with our Alabama legend, Terry Jones Jr. But first things first, we want to hear from the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Nick Saban. He met with the media yesterday as we start to get ready for ULM and also try to clean up a few things from the Texas game.
Well, I think there's a lot to learn, from this last game. I think, number one, it's not just about playing hard. I think our guys played hard in the game. They persevered in the game in tough circumstances. They overcame adversity. They showed great resiliency. But it's also about playing smart. Having good discipline to execute, focus on what's in front of you, and do your job. Not only do your job, but do it fundamentally with the correct technique, whether it's hand placement for offensive linemen, whether it's footwork for defensive backs, whether it's running your feet on contact when you're tackling. All these things are basically, fundamental things that, people have to do every day in practice, right, so that there aren't bad habits that show up in the game. And I think that's a big lesson for us, to learn. Second thing is what does it mean to be favored by 21 points? Well, there were 2 teams that I know of, maybe more, I don't know, that were favored by about the same amount that actually got beat. So I guess it doesn't mean anything. And that's why we have to play the games. So it's important for players to learn that they have to focus and prepare for every team and every opponent so that they can go out there and play to the best of their ability. Because sometimes even when you win, you can lose. So the challenge for us is, from top to bottom in the organization, is to hold each other accountable, to make sure that we're putting the players in the best position to have a chance to be successful, but we're also teaching them fundamentally what they need to do to be able to have success. But then they have to be accountable to challenge themselves every day to be able to do it. So that's kind of some of the things that I think we can learn from a game like this. We're really proud of Will Reichert. Did a great job, making the winning kick, but also his performance all day long, whether it was kickoff, field goal, whatever, was pretty stellar. So we're glad that he's SEC Player of the Week. ULM, Terry Bowden. This is a well-coached team. I think they're a lot better this year than they were a year ago. I see significant improvement on both sides of the ball. They have a good little quarterback who is athletic and make plays, is a good passer, and they're playing good fundamental football on both sides of the ball. We certainly have respect for these guys. I don't forget things, so I remember when these guys beat us. So I know that our players won't remember that because history sometimes is not that important, and they were probably only, what would you say, 5, 6 years old, when that happened, but kind of is what it is.
And that was Coach's Checklist with the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, as part of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. I want to remind you, the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs are returning to Talladega this fall. Don't miss out on the opportunity to see defending champ Bubba Wallace as he takes to the track on Sunday, October 2nd. Tickets are on sale now at TalladagaSuperspeedway.com. Can't make it out to the track? You can tune into the race on NBC at 1 p.m. Central on October 2nd. So we continue with Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Every week we'll be having one-on-one conversations with Crimson Tide football players, and for the first 2 weeks we talked to Bryce Young and Will Anderson Jr., both leading up to the Utah State and the Texas game. This week we have 2 new student athletes for you, starting with Alabama defensive back DeMarcco Hellams. He's put together a great career during his time at Alabama, and he joins us now to preview ULM. First things first, why the number change, going from number 29 to number 2?
It was a change. I used to wear number 2, Little League football. I wore it in high school. And, going into my junior year and senior year, I just wanted to get back into something that felt more like me.
Well, you've had good results already this season. How have you felt about your play in the first 2 games?
I felt like I've did some things well, but there's always room to improve. As the weeks go on, as the days go on, I'm just working on getting better every day.
What can you tell us about the pass defense we saw from Alabama against Texas? What allowed you guys to be successful on Saturday?
We did some things well. We had a lot of things that we could clean up on. I think we did a good job, trying our best to keep them out the end zone. And coming up this week, we have things to improve on. But, overall against Texas, I think we did well.
Yeah, especially keeping teams, once they reach the red zone, out of the end zone. How much of an emphasis is that for this defense?
That's something we take pride in. A bend but don't break mentality. We don't want to bend at all, but, definitely don't break. And, it's something that we emphasize this offseason, something that we emphasized in camp, was keeping everybody out the end zone. So, I think we've been doing a good job on that, and we can continue to improve.
What are you seeing from Alabama's cornerbacks so far for the first 2 games?
Production, competing, all guys who get in there, they do a great job, doing their job. Playing their role, and I think I have confidence. The coaches have confidence in anybody who he puts out there.
What have you learned about this ULM team so far?
This will be our first day reviewing these guys, but they have a good team. Everybody that plays us is going to give us their best shot. They're going to give us their best game. So coming into ULM, we aren't sliding them. We're taking them just as we take any of our other opponents.
DeMarcco, thank you for joining us. Roll Tide.
No problem. Roll Tide.
With the Talladega Garage Experience, you can get up close and personal to just about everything Talladega has to offer. Heck, any more access and you'd be a driver. Book your Talladega Garage Experience at TalladagaSuperspeedway.com.
And that was DeMarcco Hellams in that one-on-one conversation, and we can go ahead and tell you who our guest will be coming up on Thursday's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We'll have a one-on-one conversation with running back Jahmyr Gibbs. He caught the go-ahead touchdown with 8.5 minutes left to go at Texas on a great pass from Bryce Young, and we really had fun catching up with the Georgia Tech transfer Jahmyr Gibbs, so look forward to that on Thursday's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. One of the things we love about home games at Bryant-Denny Stadium, the fact that we can really honor the past of Alabama football with our honorary captains. And this week we'll have offensive lineman Lou Green, who played from 1974 to 77, the same years for Terry Jones Sr., who played first on the offensive line and then made the transition to the defensive side of the ball, where he was a great defensive tackle and later went on to play in the NFL for the Green Bay Packers before coming back to Tuscaloosa and being a strength coach for the University of Alabama for over 30 years. So Terry Jones Sr. put together a wonderful career both as a player and as a coach at Alabama, and we are proud to have him join us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network for a really fun conversation as this week's Legend of the Week for Crimson Tide football. Coach, I got to ask you, how is retirement treating you as you go through your first football season not on the sidelines with the team?
It's good. I watch football this weekend. I know where a lot of fans go through hollering at the TV. So it's good. I got a little routine I do every day. Work out, go pick up the grandkids and stuff. But being retired pretty good. After 38 years out on the capstone, it's good. Played forward with Coach Brian and coach out there for 38 years. At 38 years of your life, you kind of miss it.
Definitely understand that. And let's go back and talk about your journey as a player. First of all, you're from Sandersville, Georgia originally. Why did you sign with the Crimson Tide? Who were some other schools that maybe were recruiting you? What led to you signing with Alabama?
Well, I was going to I'm back to South Carolina was my first choice. I'm 150 miles from the house. So I would go to South Carolina. I love Tennessee, Coach Bellman at Tennessee. So I came over and visited with Alabama. I told Coach Brian, say, what school you gonna go to? I said, South Carolina. He said, you're gonna win some football games. You ain't gonna win no national championship right there. Then they said, we're gonna beat your butt. And I said, we'll go to Tennessee, we're gonna beat your butt every year. So after that conversation with Coach Brian outside, I said, hey, the best place for Terry Jones is to come to the University of Alabama. So I signed with the Crimson Tide.
We're certainly glad that you did. And did you start on the offensive side of the ball with Alabama?
That's a funny career I had here. My freshman year, I was a backup nose guard behind Gus White and Cosenzo. Then Sylvester Croon graduated and Coach Brian moved me over to center. And I started at center my sophomore and junior year. Then my senior year, he moved me back to defense, which was the best choice of my life because I wasn't going to play no center in the NFL. So he moved me to defensive lineman, and I had an 8-year career at Green Bay playing defensive lineman. I thank Coach Brian for making that switch in my life.
Absolutely. And when you made that switch to defensive line, who was your assistant coach that really helped you learn that position and continue growing in your career that allowed you to go on and play in the NFL?
Defensive lineman, Coach Dunny. Back then, we were two-gapping. Everybody two-gap. Now, me and Coach got in to talk about two-gap. And in the NFL, they were still doing old school. You use your flipper, stick your hand in there. So we use a two-gap technique where you can read both sides of the ball. And I learned how to two-gap on Coach Donahue. And, man, we're blessed to get Coach Donahue in my life to two-gap. And I had a coach in Green Bay now, Coach Hannah. And our Coach Hannah would say, knock him in the head, Jones. So, and there was some great people in my life. I've been through some great coaches in my life. They taught me great techniques and stuff. And kind of like being a technician. And that kind of like in the weight room, I learned from Al Mill and Al O'Meal how to be a strength coach. And they taught me great technique too. So people in my life helped me out to be a great technician.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ken Donahue. What a great run he had at the University of Alabama. He may be one of the more unsung heroes, it feels like, in the program's history. But how much did you enjoy playing for him?
Coach Donahue was great. Man, two people I know that he made, me and Curtis McGriff. And, one Saturday morning, he had to run a mile every Friday for the weekend. And one Friday, Tech Proof, we didn't run it at the time, which was a 6:30 mile at 250 pounds. We didn't make the time. That Saturday morning, Coach Donahue at Alabama knocking it down. Took us over to the track to make that 6:30 mile. But Coach Donahue was a great person in my life. He taught me a lot.
And then you go on to the NFL with the Green Bay Packers, and there you're coached by a former Alabama player in Bart Starr. What'd you enjoy about playing for him?
Coach Starr was a great motivator, and he did things, and we had and he played on some great coaches. We played on Lombardi, and I just love to play with Coach Starr. He was a great motivator. We both played the Dallas Cowboys in the playoff game, and Boy Star brought $55,000 into the thing. He said, we win this game, this in cash now. You win the game, this is how much money you're going to win. $55,000. And I'm saying, wow. I wonder what happened because around the complex, a bunch of police walking around. You said, who done did something? Who done kill somebody? So when we go in the meeting room, they roll out the money, the police come behind it, right there, he unveiled it for $55,000 cash. He said, you win this game, how much money you win? And Drew Field called a touchdown, that game beat us. Mad as they are.
That's certainly a good story. And once your NFL career was done, you go into strength and conditioning coaching. Had that been something on your mind even as you were a player? And then what did you enjoy most about getting to be a strength and conditioning coach at Alabama for so long?
Well, Rich Ringo was the head strength coach here, and I Coach Curry was it, and I know Coach Curry from Green Bay and everything. So one summer I came over, him and Rocky Coleman ran a great program, and Rich said, I was teaching school at West Lawn Middle School, at the elementary school. He said, you want to come to strength coach? I said, hell yeah. Right now. So I got in there and with Rich and Rocky, they taught me a lot. Then and kind of like our approach with Al Miller. So we had learned a lot from Al Miller, Kent Johnson. This was guys that had been through the program at Alabama that know about Bama football and what it took to be, you know, get in the weight room around them kids and stuff. So, and just coming in the weight room, we taught me a lot. You see the other side of kids, how to work. And that's something that my parents taught me, and I think your parents taught you. It's 2 words, hard work. And you don't make kids work hard today in here, but them 2 words we all learn. In the weight room, you have to tap that, but you got to tap in a way for the kid won't get offended and they'll work hard for you. So the old saying, so you knock them down, but you got to pick them back up. So you can go to the track, you want to run them, put it in, but you got to get a kid some love so they can play for you on Saturday. So.
And of course, they've had a lot of success during your time at Alabama. And I'm so fascinated. You got to play for Coach Bryant, but then you got to be around Coach Saban. Obviously, 2 have had so much success at Alabama. What similarities do you see between Coach Bryant and Coach Saban?
The key thing I think you look at any coach in any level is a discipline. And you look at Coach Bryant discipline, and you look at Coach Saban discipline. You can't do the thing that you did back in the 70s. So Coach Donahue and Guthrie were the hammerman, okay? And you know your role with Coach Saban. Coach Saban deal with a different breed of young people today. And especially they got that new stuff like that image stuff right there. And here's just one thing, but you know, I give him tap that he do a great job with it. Even me and Scott were there, we had our thing. We get kids and thing, Scott would call me and say, old man, take this kid and go on an old man walk with him. So we'll walk around campus. And then walking around campus, it wasn't about punishment. It was not, I was messing with their head, getting the feel for them and stuff. So I take them on an old man walk, you know, and talk to them and try to tell them what's going on about the game of football. And it's a game of football. After football is over, it's a game of life. But the discipline of that, you know, number of graduate, you can go to class, you have to get up in breakfast club. You can go out there and do jike burgers, you can roll. You can do a lot of things back in the old school now. You can do rolls and goals, you can do up, down. You can't do a kid like that today. That kid get in that portal, I'm leaving here, I ain't coming right here. But at the end of the day, and I tell kids this right here, at the end of the day, you want your bill of sale. And your bill of sale is when you walk across that stage and get your degree. And you gotta have discipline. And like this weekend, I'm gonna talk about this weekend. We had so many penalties. I was just, what got me is, man, all these damn penalties. And I'm just saying, where, you know, I'm saying, what, up, down, run, half, do some stuff. I'm sorry. So I'm but I'm just saying, the point is, you lose game because of stuff that during the week, Coach Saban, Coach Bryant always put you can't jump on the side, you can't do it, and then you get in the game like missing assignments and everything, discipline that. And that's what I see a lot of sports, it's a lot of discipline. So my pastime now is my granddaughter. She got a volleyball match today. And I go look at that around my 5:30 and I see some discipline and I be fussing. Where's the discipline? Right there. So my thing is, even raising your kids in the thing is the discipline part. And there are 2 coaches that had 2 different kind of people in the 70s. And here, you know, Coach Saban, that's in 2007. It's a whole different breed. I could call out names, but I won't call out no names. But it's just dealing with them kids, and we have a way to, Scott, and we have a way, dealing with them kids, and you have to deal with them. The attitudes, I ain't playing, but they ain't going to class, but you have to deal with that discipline. And that's why I say it's just the kids today dealing with discipline.
Certainly understand that, and I'm sure you're proud of all the guys you're able to coach as a strength and conditioning coach at Alabama, but especially Terry Jones Jr. got suited up for the Crimson Tide, ended up being a captain, and your son Jason as well started on the football team, eventually moved over to the strength side of things as well, but you had to be tremendously proud to see them in Crimson and get to be around them during their time at the University of Alabama.
Yeah, I tell everybody I had two careers. One as an NFL football player and one as a strength coach. And I said, I was blessed. I had two sons. Terry Jr. followed my footsteps as a football player, go to the NFL and play for 5 years. Then I look at Jason in the weight room. He come in with the walk-on player, then making him come on and be in the weight room. And I see him learning, and you have to treat your son different, both sides in the weight room, and you have to treat it. I remember Terry Jr. missed a class. I busted, but so bad that morning at 6 o'clock in that morning, dude, he didn't miss another class. That's 4 years there. So I say, you represent power. Then Jason would be in the weight room, and I would tell Jason, I say, I got 1, 2, 3 platforms. I say, first 2 platforms is money. That's where you got the first round draft choices in. And I say, you don't screw them up. And one day I saw him doing some stupid stuff, or I say, your butt from the squat jump. I'm not gonna make the athlete squat jump. I'm gonna make you squat jump. So this time right there, the point is installing that discipline in there. But it was great to, see both of my sons follow my career.
Really was great to see. And coming up this weekend, again, you're going to be an honorary captain for Alabama's game against ULM, but you're not going to be alone. You're also going to have your teammate there, Lou Green. Just what do you remember about him as a player? And you excited to go through this experience this weekend with him?
They're called Mean Green. And Mean Green, I was playing offensive center, Green was playing left guard. So we back then, I made all the calls on. See, kind of playing right. I made all the calls on the offensive line. What kind of block we gonna run? And we would play against Mississippi State, and they had a bad son that Hogan and somebody that dude. I said, Green, we gotta take him out. So we're gonna scoop block, and I want you to roll up on his knees. So we run that scoop block. We try to take him out, and Green played good. I enjoyed Green and called him Mean Green. And we had a good 4 years together at Bama. And we talk some around here now. They tailgate. And that's one thing I think about retiring. I got an opportunity to hang out with the fellows now on Saturday afternoon. I ain't got to go stand on the sideline for 3 hours and you walking by. You see them over there having a beverage and you want to study. No, man, I got to go. I'm tired. So now I can go to the tailgate and enjoy my guys and have fun with them.
That sounds good. Well, enjoy the tailgates, enjoy chasing around the grandchildren and your workouts, your new daily routine now that you're retired after a great career at Alabama. But just thank you so much, Terry, for joining us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, sharing some fun memories. All the best to you. Roll Tide.
Okay, roll Tide.
Fun conversation with Terry Jones Sr. We look forward to seeing him and Lou Green be honored as our honorary captains for this week's game between Alabama and ULM. Before we say goodbye on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR for this Tuesday edition of the show, we want to back it up to Monday night. And of course, Crimson Tide Rewind. We have that for you each Monday night at 6 p.m. throughout football season at Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. And I was joined by Corey Reamer for the show as we had a fun breakdown of Alabama against Texas, plus looking ahead to Saturday against ULM. Here's what we're starting to call the Be Kind Rewind of Crimson Tide Rewind, and we'll have this for you on our Tuesdays editions of Crimson Drive throughout the football season, but Be Kind and Crimson Tide Rewind. Alabama improved to 2-0 on the season, and I'm sure for you, it was a very hot morning and afternoon in Austin, Texas, is our sideline reporter.
It was a long day, but it was a great experience. Unfortunately, it was not the greatest of games that we were all expecting to have going into it. 11 o'clock kick. It was hot on the sideline. I know it got hotter as the day went on. It was actually pretty nice when we kicked off, and then about 1 o'clock, it started getting pretty warm there in that second half of the game.
You feel like it had much of an effect on the Crimson Tide or the Longhorns as the game went along?
Probably. I mean, it's whenever it's that hot, you're going to wear out a little bit. But these guys have been practicing both Alabama. It's not like we were practicing up in the Northeast or anything. It was, we've been practicing in the camp in this type of temperature, and Alabama has been hot this fall. So nothing too crazy. We were all, I think we were prepared. We were conditioned. I don't know. It looked like it might have had some effects on us for sure, with a very uncharacteristic game from Alabama in terms of penalties and just mental mistakes that we just don't see from this team, especially coming into this season with the maturity and leadership that we expected to have with guys that were turning, that were great players for us last year. Some of those guys were the ones making mistakes, and those are the ones that you don't expect to.
And even with all the penalties, some of the mental mistakes, as you mentioned, and the offense just couldn't get much going in the second half when it still mattered. You have to get the go-ahead touchdown. You have to get the game-winning field goal. They were able to produce.
Yeah, there was a lot of negative things that we could talk about from this game. It was not pretty by any means for Alabama. But at the end of the day, you put the ball in the hands of Bryce Young, and he leads a phenomenal drive at the end to give Will Reichert a chance to kick the game-winning field goal. And I think I heard the stats that he was 14 of 19 or something in the fourth quarter with 130 yards passing or something like that. I mean, he turned it on when it mattered. I mean, he came up and showed up in a big way for us to get that win. And it was not easy for about 3.5 quarters. It was great. I tell you what, Will Reichert, Steve Sarkisian calls the timeout too right before he's about to go for the game-winning field goal. And he's cool as cucumber, man, and he always has been. And Alabama's gotten used to him showing up. We enjoy having a guy like Will Reichert on the sideline that you can just rely on. It's definitely a blessing to have him. But that last drive that Bryce Young put together, finding Trayshawn Holden, I think 3 or 4 times, moving the ball down the field and avoiding that sack at the end of the game, that would have been probably a really good chance of ending that ball game or keeping us out of field goal range. His mobility, his instincts to be able to avoid that sack and then make a play with his feet to get us into field goal range, it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe my eyes.
The play in the end zone where Bryce Young was going down, originally called targeting on the field and eventually ruled an incomplete pass, but it was all very confusing for all of us, not only in the stadium, everyone watching at home and listening on the radio as well. Just what did you see on that play as it first developed?
Yeah, I imagine this play is going to be one that's talked about for a long time. I mean, it's when we were on the field and we watched it happen, we were all trying to figure out what was going on because we didn't understand the targeting call. We saw the replay on the big screen immediately and saw that there was no contact to Bryce Young's head, so obviously targeting wasn't going to be it. Then it was a personal foul. We're trying to figure out what they're trying to figure out on the replay. Is it a safety? And then you realize, and I think they got the call right. He obviously rolls over the Texas defender, never touches the ground, gets the ball out of his hands, and Jace McClellan standing at the goal line, and the ball hits off of one of Texas players' helmets. I think they got the call right, but if you're a Texas fan, you don't think they got the call right. And there's a lot of people who were discussing this at length over the weekend after this game. It was probably one of those game-changing plays for sure. No points on the board, gives us an opportunity to punt the football away, and we're walking out without having to have safety and having to kick back off to them, give their offense the ball back. But it was extremely confusing. I was talking to Chris. I'm sure you were up there, Joe Parker. We were all trying to figure out what it was, what was going on, what was the call, what were they looking for. We had a lot of things that didn't go our way, and then there was a lot of things that did, and that was one of them. And also the field goal that was missed right before halftime, actually blocked, I think is what they said, that Will Anderson was able to get his hand on it. Play before, the pass interference call on Kool-Aid McKinstry, I thought it was a perfectly played pass by Kool-Aid McKinstry. I was shocked to see the flag come out. I thought he did a great job, but that's the nature of the beast, and that's what Coach Saban talks about is you got to handle the adversity, get back, line up, play the next play, and that's what they did. That's the big picture is you take it away. We found a way to win the ball game. A lot of things went against us, and we found a way to get out of there with a W.
What about this week of practice moving forward, knowing ULM is going to come into Tuscaloosa and give Alabama its best shot Saturday?
Yeah, before we do that, I was extremely glad we were able to come away with a victory on that game because I was standing there on the sideline and I could see and feel the fans that were converging, ready to jump on and rush the field if they win that ball game. Luckily, we come out with a victory, and that doesn't happen. We can walk off pretty safely, but now we got another week. It's another week with ULM coming in, who also had to play Texas 2 weeks ago. So tough schedule for ULM for sure. We got to rebound and go up and clean up what we had a lot of mistakes on. You heard Coach Saban talk about in that press conference about tackling. We saw a lot of arm tackles that Bijan Robinson, one of the best backs in the country, was able to break through. We got to work on wrapping up, getting guys on the ground. We've got the opportunity to. Had some guys stopped in the backfield. They were able to make some positive yards out of that, but now we've got to go in there and get some of that cleaned up. These penalties, some mental errors, be prepared. And we can't let this game affect us past Sunday. We've got to be able to forget about it. We were able to go out there and get a win. Now there's a new team on deck, and that's how it's going to be all season. Go in and focus, figure out what it is that we can do better, what we got to improve on as the season goes on, and continue to work on those things as the season progresses, because it's still a long season to go. We're only 2 games into this.
Be kind. Crimson Tide Rewind from last night's edition of Crimson Tide Rewind. Again, we'll be having that show throughout the football season, Mondays at 6 p.m. Streaming live, of course, on our social media channels, as well as you can come to the show live at Baumhower's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. Now, as we get ready for the weekend and what's ahead for Alabama football as we get ready for Week 3, it's time for our Wickles Weekend Update, brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. Find out more at wickles.com. Here's a look at what's coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. We'll be back on Thursday with another edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR at 2 p.m. We'll have a one-on-one conversation with Jahmyr Gibbs, Alabama running back, plus some conversations as well with Chris Stewart, who's calling the game, of course, for us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, Taylor Zarzer of the SEC Network, as well as the broadcaster for ULM, Mike Hammett. So we have all that coming up for you on the Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, and then later that night we will have at 6:30 p.m. Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show's Jay Sewell. You'll get to hear from the men's golf coach for the Crimson Tide, as well as Alabama head coach Nick Saban. Friday we'll have a best of everything on the This Week on the Crimson Tide Sports Network podcast, available wherever you get your podcast, including the Varsity Network app. And then Saturday it will be time for football, as it's Alabama against ULM. 3 p.m. is the kickoff. Our airtime will be noon across the network, and once again we'll have the booth cam. You saw the highlights earlier from the Texas win. We'll have the booth cam once again right back here on the CTSN Facebook page. Then on Sunday, it's an episode of the Nick Saban television show. Many markets across Alabama have that show back-to-back with Tide TV this week, so you can catch up on everything going on around Alabama athletics with Tide TV this week. And then we will have Crimson Tide Rewind starting on Monday night, 6 p.m. Look forward to having that once again from Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills. NASCAR Cup Series playoffs are almost here. Experience unforgettable racing as the NASCAR Cup Series playoff race returns to Talladega Superspeedway on October 2nd. Lock in your tickets today at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. It's going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Another fun show once again, as we got to have a one-on-one conversation with defensive back DeMarcco Hellams, as well as take a look back at not only Crimson Tide Rewind, but the booth cam from the Texas win, hear from Coach Saban, and then a great conversation as well with Terry Jones Sr. So we hope you enjoyed all of that. We have to say thank you to all of them for joining us this week on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Thanks as well to Ethan Carabin, our producer for this show, as he really put this show together well for all of you. And again, we will have the show coming up on Thursday again. 2 o'clock will be Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. For everybody at the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover saying thank you for watching, good afternoon, and roll Tide.